This session right now is going to be about navigating youth substance use services, and I'm very excited to present to you this panel. This panel represents a kind of a group within a group, right? We think about mental health services more broadly, and then sometimes substance use services don't always get the same level of attention and funding and legislative advocacy that mental health services does. And so this group of people here is really representing the spectrum of services that we have here in San Antonio. I want you to know that we definitely need more services in this area, and the reason I know that is because these people have told me. And so these are people who are dedicated to doing this very specific but very difficult but also very rewarding work of working with young people who are using and maybe addicted to substances. And so I just want to thank you all for your work. Thank you for sharing your time with us on this Friday afternoon, and thank you all for being here as well. I will put up the slide, the QR code for CEUs at the end. I think if you're getting CEUs, you've heard this conversation a couple of times, so I won't belabor that point. But I'll go ahead and do an introduction with our speakers and their bios. Evita Morin is the CEO of Rise Recovery. She aids youth and families affected by substance use issues. A Columbia-educated social worker with nearly 20 years of social service experience, she opened San Antonio's first whole family recovery campus and recovery high school, expanding resources and challenging systems. She helped launch a 24-hour peer-operated helpline and early intervention programs in public schools. She volunteers leadership on a variety of community committees. In recovery herself, she is a mother of two who enjoys various hobbies, including writing, karaoke, aerial arts, and CrossFit. Next, Abigail Garza Moore is the CEO for the San Antonio Council on Alcohol and Drug Awareness, or SACADA, and has been with the agency for over 19 years. She has been in the field of substance use disorders for over 25 years. Her passion is promoting prevention, advocating for treatment, and increasing recovery support services in Texas. Ms. Moore began her career in Lubbock, Texas after graduating from Texas Tech University. She has a master's in community counseling from UTSA. She has been influential as a leader with the local ROSC and participates at the state level with the Texas Recovery Initiative. She is passionate about removing the stigma on mental health and substance use disorders. Abigail advocates for prevention across the community and the human lifespan. Abigail is married to Dr. Felix Moore, a filmmaker and author. They are proud parents to 4 children and enjoy spending time with their 5 grandchildren. And filling in for Jason Turner is Casey Cunningham. He's in business development and emotion wellness. Casey plays an integral role in the San Antonio recovery community as a business development professional. His purpose is deeply rooted in a passionate commitment to community advocacy and outreach with the goal of connecting individuals to the resources they need for their path to recovery. Having personally experienced the journey of addiction and recovery, Casey is inspired by the opportunity to make a meaningful impact on the lives of those who are grappling with substance use disorders and mental health issues. As a dedicated member of the San Antonio recovery community, he has dedicated himself to being a guiding light for those in search of help and support. Please welcome our panel. Go ahead and kick us off, Abigail. You want the clicker? Here you go. It's the green button.
Green button.
You got it.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having us here. As Jessie said, my name is Abigail Moore, and I'm really excited that we get to share some of the services that we provide at the council. We call ourselves SACADA for short. Who's heard of SACADA in the past? Wow. So I really don't need us to do the talk. We're done. Good. I have, I'm sorry, I forgot. Janelle Vanna White over here to the right, and she is passing some goodies. Please take a pen and a little stress ball for yourself to enjoy while you're here as a little gift from us at the council. So we'll go ahead and get started. As Jessie said, most of our services are prevention focused, but I would say about a year ago we received our first treatment grant for adolescents. I don't want to steal Evita's thunder, but Evita and I have been working together. We know that adolescent treatment is very limited here in Bexar County, and we put our heads together and started encouraging each other, and SACADA got licensed about 8 weeks ago to provide adolescent treatment and adult treatment again, because we had been licensed about 25 years ago, but before I came to SACADA, the license, I think, expired, and they just really never reapplied. So we're really happy that we get to partner with friends like Rise Recovery and Evita's team to increase services for young people. Such a huge need. So our youth prevention programs, we believe that we must do the work across the spectrum of care for individuals, from promotion of mental wellness and prevention of substance use disorder, all the way to maintenance and recovery. So we've got to make sure that our communities have the resources for not only across the lifespan, from young people all the way to senior citizens, but across the continuum of care. And so we provide evidence-based prevention curriculums in the schools with kids. And so we use Project Towards No Drug Abuse, Botman Life Skills, Rainbow Days, and these are curriculums that teach kids. A lot of people say, you're gonna go in there and teach them, say no to drugs. Actually, in a 12-week semester sessions that we spend with the kids for 12 hours once a week, if we talk about drugs once, that's about it. Because true prevention is increasing the protective factors, the things that help kids, and reducing the risk factors. And so the way we do that is by, how do you strengthen the protective factors? Kids need to feel connected to the school. They need to find meaning in their life. They have to have caring adults. They have to have communication skills and coping skills and mood management skills. So that is true prevention. So we begin with a little pre-test. The kids do it pre-test. After the pre-test, they get right into the curriculum sessions, and small groups of 10 to 15 kids. And then at the end, they do a post-test, and we measure the amount of growth and impact for the kids. And the curriculums are age appropriate. So we do curriculum as young as first grade and as up to 12th grade. So developing those life skills, the communication skills, the meaning and connection and feeling valued and having a sense of purpose at a very young age is important. If we start then, that's true prevention. That is doing the upstream work. So we do that in 13 school districts. We have MOUs with 13 school districts, and we do intervention work as well, not to the level that Evita does at the high school, but we partner and do some of those works together. But really trying to do that upstream work with kids. But we know that we can't just work with the kids and assume that solution, no more, the kids will never get into substance use disorder in their lifetime, because their environment causes the risk. Many times they end up with ACEs, where a parent is abusing substances, struggling with mental illness, criminal justice, divorce, violence. There's so many in the ACEs that impact young people. And so being able to provide the resources for their parents as well. And so we have, this is a treatment grant that we got for young people, and this is a SAMHSA grant. We are just finishing year 1, and we're really working with a whole family, but we go up to the schools and we provide, with our LCDCs, provide treatment for adolescents in their schools. We have case managers that do case work with them, and then a recovery coach that connects the kids to other resources and provides recovery support services for kids. And all of this information is outside on a big hard sheet of paper thing out there. It says SACADA, please take one. It has QR codes, it has our phone numbers, our websites, and you can reach out to us. And as long as we have an MOU with the school, we can do the work in the school with the kids. It really helps the parents out. If a single parent and they have, a hard time getting kids to therapy or counseling after school or before school, sometimes transportation's a problem, we get to go and do the work at the schools if we have an MOU with the school. If we don't, we do telehealth. We can do, virtual, or the kids can come to our office, or we can go and meet them in another community center close to their home. But we do have to have an MOU to be able to do it during school time. Usually we do it during lunch or during an elective, and we just have to have the agreement signed by the parent, and we're able to see the kids there. We do general presentations and awareness education to the community at large. We do what's called an annual needs assessment, and we gather the data from not only Bexar County, but the region. The state pays us to do this needs assessment, and the data tells us what are the needs, what are the gaps, and what are the resources. Coming off the press will be our new report on September 1st. You are able to utilize that document for your agency, whether it's for grant writing, whether it's just to share information with other parents or with your key stakeholders. Use that annual needs assessment to however you need it, or if you need for us to come and present on it, because it is 158 pages, and if you just want a snapshot of what really impacts young people, we can share that as well. We have a coalition that does tobacco awareness. We know that vaping has become a huge problem with young people. Yesterday, we met with City Council, not Behavioral Health, Public Health Committee. The City of San Antonio is looking at enhancing the ordinance of being a smoke-free city to including vaping, because it's not included in the language. When that ordinance was passed in 2010, vaping wasn't an issue back then, and it is now. And so as you go to the mall and you go to places, you see people vaping in buildings, and they can, because it's not included in the ordinance. But we are very supportive of what our city's doing there, and our coalition has done part of that work and will continue to do so. I do want to share some of the intervention services that we do have for adults. So we have a program, it's called Padres, and it's not just for dads. Padres means parents. And so we provide case management, we provide free recovery support services, and resources that the family might need. Sometimes we buy car seats, we help with a crib, we help with, sometimes with rent or whatever it is that that family needs. We often work with CPS and make sure that we are advocating for that family to be able to keep their children and just thrive. But Padres, and then we have another grant that's the PPI, which is Parenting Postpartum Intervention Program, and these are for moms that have already begun to struggle with substance use disorders, and how can we intervene early on and provide them the support. So again, all of that information is out in the hallway, and you can take that with you. So I did talk about Padres and Madres. Medically assisted treatment. We received a grant from SAMHSA and provide a medically assisted treatment. We work with first responders, and so when first responders do a reversal, they're called by individuals are calling EMS, and they show up to do an opioid overdose reversal. And in the past, 8 years ago, when overdoses happened and it was reversed, that person, 95% of the time, they chose to not be transported to the hospital. They refused it. They got out of the ambulance or, where the fire trucks and they were there, and they would refuse to go to receive further care. Well, guess what? Are they at risk for another overdose? Absolutely. And 2 years before COVID, we began a pilot program with our first responders here in Bexar County. and they connected a coach. So anytime that they do a reversal, a coach within 24 to 48 hours meets with that individual. So a coach and the first responder team go and do that visit to that individual. And we are usually able to start them on medically assisted treatment, whether it's buprenorphine, Suboxone, or methadone, and we're able to help first responders that way. And so we've stopped that gap where before the intervention happened, but no further treatment was offered. We're really proud of that. Not only, it's not a pilot any longer, it's now a program here in San Antonio, and other cities throughout the state are contacting our first responders here and trying to learn from them. We do provide to the general public evaluations and assessments. So sometimes an attorney refers somebody, whether it's CPS or a self-referral or a family that just calls and needs help and wants information. We have 11 recovery coaches, and so when they meet with a recovery coach, they help that individual or that family navigate what are the resources that can help our family, because most people, the very first time they contact a place like us, they don't know what intensive outpatient residential and dual diagnosis, that is like foreign to people. But if we sit along with them and walk along with them, they are more inclined to follow through and reach out to the resources. So we do a walk along instead of just a warm handoff. We actually go with them to that first appointment and try to get them feeling comfortable in the treatment environment. And our recovery coaches stay with individuals long-term, up to a year. So after they leave treatment, or even while they're still in treatment, let's say they go to a residential facility or outpatient treatment, and these are for adults as well as young people, a coach stays connected to them. That way when they do come out back to their community, they have already established that relationship and the resources with our coaches. And that's proven best practice to really help individuals. So as I was telling you about the needs assessment, we do the regional needs assessment in all of these 28 counties, but the majority of the data is from Bexar County, and it's looking at what are the risk factors for young people, what are the things that create an environment where kids are more likely to be exposed to substances. For example, the ordinance not including vaping, guess what? They see other people vaping, it's readily accessible to them, so there's a higher level of young people utilizing and getting involved with vaping. So access to young people, the higher the access, the higher the use. Right now, in our schools, according to our report, it states that 83% of high school students have tried vaping, and 25% of those are current regular vape users. But 87% of our kids in our high schools have tried it. So again, prevention and intervention is really important, and we've got to get to kids young. Another thing that we provide is a minor in possession class. When young people get a citation for possessing of alcohol, our class is different. When they go to the driving school, because sometimes they offer those classes in places like that, well, they're not offered by licensed chemical dependency counselors, or they're not offered by a youth recovery coach. They're offered by people that were defensive driving instructors, and it makes a big difference, because when they have a recovery coach, a youth recovery coach, or a licensed chemical dependency counselor that gets to talk to them about how they got that first MIP, a minor in possession, and what was happening and what kind of situations are going on at home, and then they offer them the other resources, that is a perfect time for an intervention when a young person ends up at, whether it's precinct 1, 2, 3, or 4, that they have to see a judge, and being able to have the intervention early on, instead of it being punitive, it's something that's supportive and they have resources. It's proven to be more effective for young people. We offer mental health first aid training for providers like yourselves, that we pay for you to go through that training, and we have mental health first aid for youth or teens, and then mental health first aid for adults. You could also get that on that list out there, and we offer that course at no cost to the community. It's a little bit about our programs, but we really believe in collaborating and working with our partners because we can't do this alone. And you often, where you see SACADA, you'll see RISE, where you see, Family Service, you'll see many of the other nonprofits, because we believe that we need to do this together. And it's not duplicating of services, it's just really working together to help that family unit or the community or the schools receive their services that they need. So if you have any questions when we get done or open it up for questions, I'll be more than happy to answer those.
Thank you so much for that. I can't agree enough the importance of our collaboration. We are partners in this work, whether it be it for-profit or nonprofit. Our primary focus is to make sure that these kids have the resources that they need. And so that's what we do. And so with that, I will say, one of the things that I have learned in this work is that there are a lot of matches that start the fire of substance use disorder. And we all know what they are. They're trauma, socioeconomic challenges, poverty, genetics. But I will say the one thing that I have seen pouring gasoline on that fire is how early somebody starts. Because the earlier that person uses drugs or alcohol, instead of letting their brains develop and healthy coping skills develop in their lives, the more likely that their brains are going to be, yes, this is what I need, this is what I want to solve my problem and to numb out those issues. And so that's what we see in the youth that we serve all the time. And so our work is early intervention. Abigail's work is primarily prevention, and so we try and create that continuum of care together. So Rise Recovery is, it's been around for 47 years, formerly known as Palmer Drug Abuse Program, if anyone has heard of that. And so we have been around quite a long time providing peer-based services, and I'll talk a little bit about it. I think the important thing to recognize too is that recovery for recovery's sake is not what it's all about. It is also because substance use issues are the underlying issue often for so many of our community ills, like family violence. 52% of family violence, family violence incidences that lead to death for that child involved substance using caregivers, just as an example. And so we are here not just to make kids healthier, we are also here to reduce family violence in our communities. We're also here to stop that school to prison pipeline. There's a lot of folks who experience, a lot of kids, like I've got a 10-year-old, she's heard prevention messages, but for those kids who are already using, and guess what, it feels great for them, and it's solving their problems, nobody's talking to them. All we're doing is disciplining them and sending them off into a system instead of preventing that school to prison pipeline. And so we're here to stop that. We are here to address the fact that so many of the kids that we serve also have underlying mental health issues, and if we don't connect them to address their bipolar disorder or their learning disorder or their anxiety, that they're going to continue to use drugs and alcohol to self-medicate for those things. And then youth development. We want these kids to be healthier, thriving citizens, and we want recovery to be the wisdom that so many other kids and so many other adults don't have because they've chosen a path that is alter to what society is telling them is okay. We use primarily a peer model, and so we are not a treatment center, we're not IOP, we're not inpatient, we don't do anything like that. The pureness of our model is that it is people in recovery helping people in recovery. We are focused we do that work by training, providing state training for the RSPS, Recovery Support Peer Specialist certification to all of our staff. Many of our staff have been participants in our program at one point and then grew into recovery and grew into this work. And we do it through alternative peer groups, which is helping our kids replace their old friends with new friends who are trying this path. We do it through social activities because what's the point of recovery if you can't have fun? We also incorporate education because they need to understand that the impact of stopping that brain development or replacing it with drugs instead of letting it develop healthily will have long-term effects and create brain damage for them in their adulthood. And then also, and we talked about peer coaching. And then the next thing is family. That is the other crux of the work we do, especially for young people. But I mean, I'm talking about, we work with young adults who are 35 who are still dependent on their parents, who have still created a cycle that is impacting all of their loved ones. And so we recognize that they need as much help as the person with a substance use disorder. In the same way that you would provide family support for someone who's experiencing cancer, It is a traumatic event for loved ones, and they also need education and orientation. What are they doing wrong? They think they're doing all the right things, but it's backfiring on them. So that support, helping them realize they're not alone and to not be ashamed of what they're feeling, helping them recognize that they did not cause this and they can't control this, helping them recognize that there is support for them and their siblings, also and the children in that family. That's another component of our program in the family work, is helping the brothers, sisters of that substance using caregiver or the child of. All of that helps heal the entire family system, sometimes regardless of whether that young person is getting help. Because a lot of times it's healing that family that ultimately leads to that help. And so you can start anywhere in our program. And I'll talk about those programs in a minute. We collaborate with Bexar County, we collaborate with COSA, we collaborate with the state, Children's Services. All of those are referral partners for us, but we also accept calls from the general community, walk-ins, emails, and we will get started with whoever. One of the components of the work, one of the things that's so important, no one needs to hand us an insurance card. No one needs to hand us a cash for payment. Everything that we provide is no cost to the people we serve, thanks to the donations and the support from places like COSA, the county, and individuals. And so really it's just a matter of scheduling it and making it happen in that family's life. Some of the just demographics of some stats of the people that we've served in the last year. It just demonstrates how big this need is. And we're just one small agency who can manage this amount, but there's so much more out there. And I'll skip through some of this, but mention that counseling and coaching is a critical part of this. Oh, good. And that outings include things like, we have after school, we go to paintball, we go hiking, we take all of our kids doing all of these things. We go out to Lakey at HE Butt Camp and have a retreat. There's a lot of components that are about not just the clinical or the educational part of it, but also just learning how to have that muscle memory in recovery. We serve practically every zip code in San Antonio and so many more outside of San Antonio, partly because there is truly no other service in this area that can provide this level of programming. And so that is one of the biggest gaps in our community, is that there isn't a space for kids that doesn't cost something. I just received a call from a mom, and she said, I've tried other programs, they tell me how much it costs, I can't afford it, but my 17-year-old needs help. And so that's part of why this work that we are collectively doing is so critical. And so one of those programs is specifically our youth program. We provide that peer coaching support group programming and activities to ages 12 to 17. We also provide, really, I think the key here is that there's not an end date to engaging in this. It is a recovery community. It is a community center. And so once someone is enrolled in our program, they never have to leave. They never have to complete, because we want this to be a safe place that they can come whenever they need recovery community in their lives. We also, as a component of this, take them out to other recovery community spaces. We have a relationship with Emotion Wellness, for instance, that provides an incredible, innovative service I can't wait for you to hear about, that mixes physical health with mental and behavioral health. And so our kids are going to experience the gym and the exercise components of being a healthy person through their IOP programming, in addition to working with Rise Recovery. Our YES program. So we started out as just after school time programming for young people. And as we grew, one of the things we noticed was how interesting, or maybe not so interesting, that only the people who could access us were able to come to the campus. Only the people within our zip code were able to come to our campus. That's a problem. We were not just seeing just the kids who were privileged enough to have the transportation or live nearby. We were also seeing only the kids who had gone so far down that path that they were being referred to us and forced to be mandated to us through, juvenile probation. That was way too late. And so one of the initiatives that we realized we needed to engage was to be in those schools, to be in as many school districts as we could, to do that early intervention work. And so again, those talking about what children experience in school. I just had a conversation with my 10-year-old who started 5th grade, and she said, "Guess what, Mommy? 3 of my friends tried alcohol over the summer." And so I already know at 10, she's hearing about it from someone, they're talking about how they felt. If we are not getting that conversation to our children, know that by at least the age 12, if not earlier, someone else is having that conversation. So who do you want it to be? And so that's where we are trying to intervene and say, yes, that might feel good. And yes, I remember as someone in recovery that it felt good. So I can relate, which is lacking in a lot of services that are earlier in intervention. I think part of why I like peer work so much is that I'm a social worker and I love social work. I'm passionate about it, but I also recognize that even if I have shared story, I can't tell it to the person that I'm working with. Whereas my peer can not only tell their story and relate to that person and help them not feel alone, they can go to a meeting with that person. They can help them buy that crib. They can do all those things that I couldn't do and walk with them in that process. And so our peers can do that with these kids that are just starting with substance use and don't recognize that the dangerous steps that they're taking. We work a lot in alternative schools with that YES program, but we really need to be in as many spaces as we can to have these conversations with kids because we don't want them to need alternative school. I appreciate that we're there though, because at least we are preventing, hopefully, them from that juvenile justice involvement. And from the stigma and shame that is usually the way we treat kids who are sent to alternative school for substance use. We can at least embrace them and show them that there's a better way. We can give that kid hope. So last year we served 700 and we reached 2,000 in schools through presentations. This is just the YES program. Through all of our programs, we reached over 10,000 kids in our schools, and so we are still growing that experience. And this is just some of the schools that we've engaged with over the last few years. I'll tell you, what's interesting to me is how hard it was to get into schools until young people started talking about the importance of their mental health to school boards, until they started showing up in those meetings and being their own advocates. Once that happened, that started opening doors for us in ways that we had never seen. So I give so much credit to peer work and to the idea that you can be your own advocate, because that made that possible. We also recognize that 18 to 35, they are very much still young people, and again, still dependent on families, and so we have that program that's dedicated to that cohort. In the same way that my 15-year-old participant really doesn't relate with the divorce and the work that this other person at a 12-step meeting is experiencing, we want them to be in their same age group. We want that 14-year-old to experience what that 50, they all relate because they're related to their related age. That is very similar for that 18 to 35 group. A lot of that is kids who are in college and were told one thing about their lifestyle and are recognizing that that is ruining their life. And so we want to be sure that people are having shared experience and that they relate to each other, which is why we do this cohort-based model. Someone's calling me. Peer coaching and support groups it's the same type of model and stipulated in desire. So I just was writing about this the other day. I wondered whether forcing someone into care was person-centered, because I'm a person-centered person. But after spending 8.5 years in this work, I have recognized that sometimes and I've heard from the people we serve, that was the one thing they needed because they weren't ready to do it themselves. And either it exposed them to a resource that when they were ready, they were able to go to, or it planted a seed that grew into an idea that maybe they could recover. So maybe we weren't able to help them at that moment, but we were able to help them in the long term due to that mandated care. So I am very supportive of finding a way to get that person in front of a resource if probation or someone is requiring that, because I've seen it work. Rise Inspire Academy is another program that is a brand new innovative program, and that there aren't a lot of recovery high schools there's none in Bexar County except for ours, but in the nation, there's only a handful. And what this does is we've got kids who have already dropped out of the school system. They've already felt like they don't belong in school or they're not welcome in school because they cannot control their substance use issues. And they are, their disciplinary response of that school system is really just not allowing them to graduate. And so what we do is re-engage those kids with an education through our recovery high school and surround them with recovery support so that they are getting both the care and the treatment that they need as well as the education that they need to cross that finish line. We've seen so many kids walk across that and receive their diploma as a result of Rise Inspire Academy. And I think the most humbling part of that program is that not a single one of them would have crossed that finish line if it hadn't been for people who were able to accept that they had a substance use disorder, accept that they might struggle along the way instead of just remove and discipline them. And so I'm very proud of the team that does that hard work. We have up to 30 students in that recovery high school. It is also at no cost. It is a charter partnership. Inspire Academies provides the education and we provide the recovery peer support and the mental health support. We're working with UT Health Science Center to bring on psychiatric support as well. So there's so many ways that we can support these kids and make sure that even if they continue to struggle with substance use, because it's a journey, not a destination, they will achieve the milestones that they need to achieve to not dig 10 feet of hole that will impact the rest of their lives. We have to get that diploma in their hands because they deserve the right to an education, even if they have a substance use disorder. Telehealth is another component of our services. Thanks to COVID, we were able to engage that and learn how to do that well. So we do that for families and we do that for youth when necessary. It is not ideal, but it allows us to access counties that don't have access to any resources and kids who have transportation barriers or who don't have the support from family to get here. And then our New Gens program, our siblings are children of someone that they love with substance use. Oftentimes in a family where there's a disease involved, these become the forgotten children. And in substance use, if you want the most focused prevention program that you can think of, it would be working with kids who have a substance using person in their family. They are the highest risk for developing a substance use disorder than any other population, and so a lot of this work is prevention with these kids. I'll mention the grief program as well. As I'm sure you are familiar with fentanyl, and that is a game changer, unfortunately, on the streets for our kids. It used to be that you could experience a substance use issue for a long time into adulthood. A lot of our kids are dying young because of things like fentanyl. And so an informal grief program that we had a few years ago has become a much bigger formal grief program because of the amount of kids that we've lost to fentanyl overdoses. And we need to continue to do that work. And so we are certified to provide, to distribute free Narcan to as many families as to the public who are willing to take it. All you have to do is come to our door and ask for Narcan. It is available over the counter already for about $25 to $40. I've seen the range, but it's free at our facility. And so if that is a barrier, this is a place you can get it. And it should be in every parent's purse or car because of the just the prevalence of these things that look like prescription medication, but are not. They're actually pressed street drugs. And that could be a whole presentation. The last thing I'll mention is our training institute. I think that's the last thing. And that is our desire to bring forth more people who are in recovery into the profession of peer support. So we provide mental health peer recovery coaching training and substance use recovery peer recovery training, all again state certified. It is a prerequisite for a lot of people to have that certification to work in the field. It is it's a billable service for adults. We are fighting for it to become a billable service for young people. But this allows us to create more people who are helping in the workforce, and this is a way that you can also get involved. It's by becoming a peer support specialist yourself. And so this is just some of the trainings that we provide, and we're building that. And then just a brief, if there is an interest in any sort of, it's always better to have a conversation with a small group of kids because you can get intimate and you can get real, but large format presentations at least plant a seed. And so if there is an interest in learning more about the dangers of fentanyl, what's going on with vapes and the drugs that they're using, we can provide so many orientations and presentations about those things, and we do it with parents all the time. And these are just a list of some of the kinds of topics. For instance, loving yourself, making good choices. We can reach elementary school kids and still have an impact that helps set them up for success. And so if you're interested in communicating with me, there's my information and there's some brochures out in the front. Thank you so much for your time, and I will pass this on to Casey.
Thank you, Evita. Thank you so much. And I know there's a lot of information. You have the slides in your app, and so please use, reference those. And I know Rise Recovery has so much to offer, as does SACADA and Emotion Wellness. So all the slides are in your app. All right, go ahead, Casey.
All right. Hi, y'all. I'm Casey Cunningham with Emotion Wellness. Filling in for Jason Turner. He texted me about 2 hours ago. And so I don't know exactly what's on these slides, but I do love talking about our program. I love doing outreach. I love talking about substance use, and specifically with our adolescent population. Let's see here. One thing about Emotion Wellness, so we opened up a year ago, new facility. We are a for-profit intensive outpatient treatment center. We were originally going to be just for adults, but we saw the need here, specifically in Bexar County, to service young people, and so we opened it up for adolescents as well. We service 13 to 17-year-olds, and I'll get into a lot more information here in a minute. I'm not going to read this whole slide, but the one thing I want you to take away from this is the word revolutionize. And we really wanted to have a revolutionary approach to substance use treatment, to mental health treatment. I don't think anybody in, for sure, the San Antonio area and probably the state of Texas are doing what we're doing to try to reach this young population that's so in need. So let me tell you a little bit about how we do that. This is the Emotion Wellness method. We have 6 pillars. I'll start with movement. So that is really what we're known for. We have an unbelievable gym space, specifically with the young people. When they come to us, we have a 6 to 9, Tuesdays, Thursdays for our IOP, and then Saturday morning. But on those Tuesdays and Thursdays, they're coming to us right after school, some of them coming from Rise Inspire Academy, and they are a bundle of anxiety, and they are triggered, they are not want to be there, they're tired. A lot of these young folks were asking them to do an intensive outpatient program after being in school all day, and that might look like looking at a projector screen and talking about substance use. No chance. And so we get them right into the back of our facility. We get them moving right away. Our movement portion consists of an element of play, an element of acquisition of skill, and then like an actual workout. And that's really designed, our whole process is designed around utilizing the neuroplasticity of the brain. It's a lot of repetition. It's, raising dopamine levels, raising serotonin levels. We're getting the brain primed through the movement process to be able to do more traditional therapeutic modalities, so your CBT, your DBT, that we're doing, all part of this whole process. Getting into self-concept, so we do a lot of story work. If you know one thing about people that struggle with substance use issues, they usually have a pretty negative story about themselves. Specifically, these adolescents have a negative mindset about how they feel about themselves. We use something called the Enlifted method. That's this kind of journaling, story work process that a few of our people at our facility are certified in. It's a very powerful process to, reframe how we view ourselves. Breath work. So this is a tough one. The breath is so critical to so many things that we do as part of our process. We actually wanted to emphasize that so much. We've got these over-ear headsets that we use called, through this company called 9-Dimensional Sound. It uses binaural beats, solfeggio frequencies, music, auditory affirmations, and through the breathing process, it really gets into the subconscious. Some young people, and adults too, we have an adult program as well, but really have a tough time with the face-to-face communication. They're going to tell you what you want to hear. They're going to manipulate, shift. This breath work process almost sounds like it's coming from the self. It's a very powerful process. The kids love it. You know, our adults in our program love it as well. Really, really powerful stuff. Connection, so kind of going back to the movement piece, you know, a lot of things happen when we get moving, when we, you know, get our heart rate up. And one of those things is a release of oxytocin. The connection that happens with these young people during the movement portion of our program is pretty incredible. This is a cliche but true statement that we hear a lot in recovery and for addicts and alcoholics is the opposite of addiction is connection. We really emphasize that connection piece further on. So our IOP program is Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday morning. On Saturday mornings, we actually bring in people from the recovery community in San Antonio to this community workout. Anybody's welcome to come. And it shows these young people, these 16, 17-year-olds that, you know, a future in a sober life is possible. It is fun. They get connected to people. It's a really good time. And yeah, just something that we emphasize as part of our program. And it just kind of happens naturally when you're side by side with your peer doing an activity together, doing hard things together. And so that connection piece is really important. Emotional regulation, you know, a lot of kids that come to us dealing with anger issues, trouble at school, trouble with family, self-soothing and emotional regulation is really challenging, specifically with our youth population. Their emotions are huge. They don't know how to regulate them. And so we have a couple other modalities that I think are unique to us and how we help them regulate. We have cold plunges and infrared and Nordic saunas on site. The process, if you've never done a cold plunge before, is really intense. You have to focus on your breathing, you focus on overcoming something that is going to pass. And the same with the emotions. It may be so intense, you just want to run, you want to scream, you want to fight, you want to... Learning to get through that through the course of our program is, we see it all the time that kids are really not able to deal with emotions when they first come in, and through the end of our process, you know, really have a better control over that. And then the last pillar of the emotion wellness method is outcomes. I know in the previous panel, a gentleman sitting here in the front, I don't think he's here anymore, but was asking about outcomes. We use something called Track 9 to measure our outcomes. That's looking at things like craving, anxiety, depression levels. I think that we have like 30 or 40 different metrics that we are tracking over the course of our program. Looking at really cool data points, we'll sit down with our clients, show them, hey, over the course of time, how are you advancing in this process? And we are an insurance-based model. We are not a nonprofit. We are a for-profit. And I'll get into some of that in a second, but we go through insurance a lot of times, and being able to use that with insurance companies to get more authorized days, to get more time in our program, to show that, hey, what we're doing works. And that's really why we're here in the first place, is to bring something new to the substance use field, to bring something new to youth in our community, and show that it works. You know, there's a cycle that happens of going through a lot of different programs. You know, this happens all over the country. People go in and out and don't really see much progress. And so by tracking it and being able to prove that to our clients, to insurance companies, to whoever, that, hey, this is working. So. Sorry, this is the first time looking at some of these slides here. Just a couple pictures. Yeah, just looking at, we have red light therapy as well at our facility. I'm not going to get into all the details of like our membership services and adult services. You can either get with me after if you want to know more about that. I'll have a slide at the end, I think, for hopefully a website that you can get more information about that. But And Nellie, my own Vanna White here in the audience, has some rack cards that she can hand out as well. Yeah, and this is just some nuts and bolts of our program. 13 to 17, it's a 12-week program, so it's 12 weeks in the intensive outpatient, and then they move down into an outpatient. It's 3 group sessions a week, 1 individual session, and here's the times for when we offer the adolescent IOP. Insurances, we are in network with Blue Cross Blue Shield, TRICARE, Aetna, Magellan, United, Cigna, and it's pretty exciting for us. Like I said, we opened a year ago. It was really challenging to be able, we don't have a fundraising department, we're not getting state funds, to be able to service the people that we know this can benefit. And so now by having all these in-network contracts, we can reach a lot more people, reach a lot more families, and really provide a service that is needed. Here's a little QR code for our website. And that is not me. No, that is our founder, Jason Turner. Amazing, revolutionary guy. He's someone who, he's had this idea for 20 years sober, has worked in every treatment center under the gun, and he's finally got the, I guess, funding to be able to open this facility, bring this new approach, knowing that it could work, and I got to tell you, it's been unbelievable. I started with Jason, I think it was like the second week we were open, and I came by, I saw what he was doing, I saw what this place was about, I saw how it was going to help people, and I said, I got to be a part of it. I'll get emotional thinking about it, but I was just somebody in recovery, had gone through my own journey, and knew that this process can help people, knew that it was different, and that bottom-up, body-centric approach is so critical, connecting the body and the mind, and so anyway, I'll leave it at that. So.
Thank you, Casey. So I have a question for the panel real quick. So we talked about where and how to get services. How would you guys say that an adult in a kid's life would know when substance use has become a problem? We understand that there's some amount of experimentation or trying things that kids may be doing, but how do we know when it's time for kids to seek treatment?
Well, what we believe, because if you look at the DSM-5, there are criteria that define how far along somebody is in the substance use disorder spectrum. But for children, because their brains are still being developed, and what a drug does to a kid. So for example, adolescents and young children, 10, 11, 12 years old, when they are excited, right? I mean, there is just like, can you please tone it down a little? So when they're excited, but when they're down, right? So you enter a chemical to that brain, and the level of the high for young people and for children, and I say children because the average age of first use in Bexar County is 11 and a half years old. First use, for them to begin to experiment. So for us, that intervention, because we are nonprofits and we don't at this time charge for treatment services, there is no wrong time to get. If you know that a child has begun to experiment, like those little girls that took those first drinks this summer, let's get an intervention there. So we believe that we've got to start doing intervention and early services to children before any use, but definitely when they begin to experiment. And then, of course, there's the young people that, if you look at the DSM-5, when they are having problems at school, they can't focus, they are using more than they started to get the same effect. But do we want to wait for adolescents to get there? No, because addiction is 5 times more likely if they begin before the age of 15. So we've got to do the intervention early on.
Yeah, I'll just say, it's kind of parallel that over 80% of people in treatment started before they were the age of 18, half of those before they were 15. And so again, that correlation of the earlier you start, the more dangerous it gets. We are not about, we're not moral police in any way. If it is a legal age and it is a legal drug, by all means, you do you, but you will significantly reduce the amount of risk that you have in your life for substance use disorder if you wait before you start using and misusing. And so that's really what Rise Recovery is trying to do. I think, to that point, the sooner you have that conversation, the better. And ours are more prevention and early intervention, so it's never too early to have a conversation with one of our programs, but I'll ask what kind of sets the standard for engaging in a program like IOP for you?
So we get our clients, people come to us from kind of 2 directions. I'd say either stepping down from a more acute level of care, like a residential or your SABH, your Clarity, or residential substance use treatment facilities. But others are coming to us for more of like a preventative approach. They've been maybe intervened with the school counselor or just an individual therapist, or just some seemingly low-level concerns from a parent. And so getting in to understand your emotions, to understand how to regulate, to understand how to self-soothe. We don't really feel that there's ever an entry point that's too minimal to get started in that process. It only, I talk to people a lot about this. Some people are in that state of crisis, and whether it's stuff from legal matters or consequences that have forced them into our program, or just those that want to be the best version of themselves possible. For young people, that's hard to recognize. That's hard to realize, hey, if I can get a handle on this now, I'll have a better, ceiling for my potential, but, they're not going to have that grasp on that event horizon. But, so I'd just say either direction they're coming from, I think that might answer it.
No, thank you so much for that. I think that sometimes adults don't always have that perspective of how dangerous substances can be for their kids. Even alcohol or vapes, which would be legal when they were older, I think it's hard for adults to recognize how dangerous those can be, and how drugs and street drugs are different than they were when the parents were younger. And I appreciate you guys bringing sort of that message, and also bringing a lot of hope and the resources and the prevention, intervention, treatment, and recovery resources that we're all building here in Bexar County, and that we're not done. We know that we're building this together, and we know that we need more, and we know that we need more people to know how to access these resources. And so that's really what today has been about. We're going to go ahead and wrap up. I know we didn't have time for questions, but we're going to let the next panel transition, but our folks will stick around. We've got 15 minutes before the next panel, and then after that we'll have one last plenary session. I'll definitely plug the last session. I was able to interview the mayor and his wife and son, who's 16 years old, about youth mental health, and it was a really beautiful conversation hearing from all 3 of them about that. And then, because I know you guys are interested in kids, tomorrow we're going to have some sessions that are more focused on everyone. And so if you want to bring your kids with you, bring younger people to those sessions tomorrow. We structured some of them with them in mind, knowing that it was a Saturday and hoping we'd get some folks there. So thank you so much. We appreciate you being here, and I hope you stay to the end of the day, and see you tomorrow.